9 days after I signed the papers, my husband slid across our kitchen table. He called me from the county records office. His voice was not loud. That made it worse. "Claire," he said, "why did my name disappear?" I was standing in the laundry room of my sister's townhouse, folding a white towel that did not belong to me. The dryer hummed behind my knees. A loose button tapped softly against the metal drum. For a moment I looked at the phone like it belonged to someone else. Then I said, "From what?" He breathed once through his nose. "You know from what?" I did know. That was the problem. I knew exactly what had disappeared. I knew when it disappeared. I knew who had signed the paper that made it possible. And I knew he still believed I had not understood what I was signing. That had always been Daniel's mistake. He thought silence meant ignorance. He thought peace meant permission. He thought a woman could live inside a house for 19 years, remember every bill, every leak, every apology, every insult, and still not know where the foundation was cracked. I folded the towel in thirds. My hands were steady. His were not. I could hear it in the way he swallowed before speaking again. "I'm asking you a question." "I heard you." "Then answer me." I placed the towel on top of the dryer. It was still warm. The same kind of warmth our kitchen used to have every morning before Daniel filled it with numbers, judgments, and small corrections that sounded harmless to everyone but me. 9 days earlier, he had sat in that kitchen wearing the blue dress shirt he saved for loan officers and family events. His sleeves were rolled once at the wrist. Not because he was working. Daniel liked the look of a man who had been working. There was a thin folder in front of him. Tan paper, black clip, 2 yellow signature flags. I remember those flags most clearly. They looked so cheerful, like nothing bad could hide beneath them. I had just finished rinsing 2 coffee mugs. His had a dark ring inside because he never rinsed it right away. Mine still smelled faintly of cinnamon from the cheap creamer I bought when it was on sale. Daniel tapped the folder with 2 fingers. "We need to take care of this today." I dried my hands on a dish towel. "What is it?" "Routine paperwork." That was his favorite kind of phrase. Routine paperwork. Financial housekeeping. Common sense. Adult decisions. Words that made questions sound childish. I walked to the table but did not sit. The kitchen light above us flickered once. Daniel had promised to replace it for 3 weeks. He pushed the folder toward me. "Just sign where it's marked." I looked down at the first page. The lines were dense. The margins were narrow. My legal name appeared near the bottom, smaller than his. Claire Ann Whitaker. Seeing it there made something tighten in my chest. Not fear exactly. Recognition. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "You don't need to read every word." I asked what it is. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "It keeps the house protected." "Protected from what?" "From unnecessary complications." I looked at him. He sighed, performing patience. "Claire, this is why these things take forever with you." There it was. The small cut. Clean and practiced. I had heard different versions of that sentence for almost 20 years. This is why we can't talk about money. This is why I handle the accounts. This is why I make the big decisions. This is why you should be grateful I still keep you here. He had said that last line 2 nights before. Not in anger. That was the part people never understood. Cruelty delivered calmly can live longer in the body than shouting. We had been having dinner at his mother's house in Brookhaven, a suburb with wide driveways and polite mailboxes. His mother Patricia served pot roast on her wedding china and watched me refill glasses like I was still auditioning for the family. Daniel's younger brother Mark had joked about my part-time work at the church preschool. "So Claire," he said, slicing carrots with the side of his fork, "do the kids pay you in finger paint?" Daniel laughed softly. I waited for him to say something kind. He dabbed his mouth with a napkin instead. "She likes feeling useful," he said. Patricia gave a pleased little nod. "Some women are happier without pressure." I looked down at my plate. The pot roast was too dry. I had cut mine into small pieces so no one would notice I had stopped eating. On the drive home I said, "You made me sound simple." Daniel kept both hands on the wheel. "I was defending you." "No, you weren't." His jaw moved once. "You're lucky I still keep you here, Claire." The road noise filled the car. I watched the headlights slide across the dashboard. "What does that mean?" It means most men would not tolerate this arrangement. What arrangement? He glanced at me, then almost bored. You don't own anything. You don't bring in real money. You spend your days helping other people's children glue paper leaves to construction paper. I turned toward the window. I did not cry. I was past crying in front of Daniel. He liked tears too much. Not because he enjoyed pain exactly, but because tears confirmed his version of me. Too soft. Too emotional. Too dependent. By the time we pulled into our driveway, something inside me had gone quiet. Not dead. Quiet. There is a difference. So when he pushed the folder toward me 2 nights later, I recognized the shape of the moment. I had been living inside it for years. The kitchen clock ticked over the stove. The refrigerator motor clicked on. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice, then stopped. Daniel slid a pen across the table. Sign here. I picked up the pen. He watched my hand. That was when I noticed something. His wedding ring was not on his finger. Daniel always removed it when he showered, sometimes when he worked in the yard, never at the kitchen table. A thin pale band circled his skin where it should have been. I looked at it for 1 second too long. He followed my gaze and closed his hand. Claire, what happens after I sign? He rubbed his forehead. We avoid future problems. You keep saying that. Because it's true. What kind of problems? His eyes sharpened. Do you want to keep this house stable or not? The house. Not our home. The house. 3 bedrooms, 1 narrow den, a back porch he never sat on, a mortgage I had helped protect by trimming groceries, delaying dental appointments, and working odd hours around his mother's expectations. There were pencil marks inside the pantry door showing my niece's height during summers she stayed with us. There was a hairline crack above the hallway vent from the winter the furnace failed. There was a stain under the living room rug from the night Daniel spilled red wine after his promotion party and blamed me for placing the glass too close to his elbow. I knew that house. I knew what it cost. Not only in money. Daniel tapped the page. Please don't turn this into something emotional. I almost laughed. Instead, I signed. Claire Ann Whitaker. The letters looked calm. He turned the page before the ink dried. Here too. I signed again. Then again. 4 signatures total. He gathered the papers quickly, too quickly, and put them back into the folder. I watched him align the corners against the table. A neat man. A careful man. A man who believed neatness was the same as honesty. Thank you, he said. I stood there with the pen still in my hand. He reached for it. I did not let go right away. For the first time that day, he looked uncertain. Only for a moment. Then his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and turned it face down. I noticed that too. After he left for his office, I wiped the kitchen counters. I rinsed his coffee mug. I replaced the trash bag. I moved through the house like any other morning. But the quiet inside me had changed shape. It was no longer numbness. It was attention. I went into the hallway closet and pulled down the old blue accordion file where I kept things Daniel said I did not need to worry about. Insurance papers. Tax copies. Old mortgage statements. Receipts for repairs. A deed copy from years ago. The kind of paper trail women keep when they are told they do not understand paper. I spread everything on the bedroom floor. Sunlight fell across the carpet in a pale rectangle. Dust moved through it like tiny witnesses. By noon I had called my sister Rachel. By 2 I was sitting in her townhouse kitchen across from her neighbor, a retired title clerk named Mrs. Alvarez, who wore silver reading glasses on a chain and listened without interrupting. She looked through my copies slowly. Then she removed the glasses and placed them on the table. Claire, she said, you need to tell me exactly what he asked you to sign. My mouth went dry. I don't have a copy. She looked at me with a sadness that did not pity me. That was the first problem. Rachel reached across the table and touched my wrist. What's the second? Mrs. Alvarez folded her hands. The second is that your name may matter more than he thinks. I did not answer. I just sat there hearing Daniel's voice. You don't own anything. And for the first time I wondered if he had said it because he believed it. Or because he needed me to. That evening I did not go home. I told Daniel I was helping Rachel with her boys because one had the flu. It was not entirely a lie. Her youngest did have a fever. I sat with him on the couch while cartoons played too loudly and held a bowl under his chin when he got sick. He fell asleep with one hand wrapped around my sleeve. No one thanked me. No one needed to. That kind of care had never been invisible to me. Only to people who counted value badly. For the next 9 days I stayed mostly quiet. Daniel texted practical questions. Where is the extra checkbook? Did you move the tax folder? Are you coming home tonight? I answered only what needed answering. The rest I let sit. Then on the 9th morning my phone rang. Daniel. I almost let it go to voicemail. But some moments arrive carrying the sound of a door closing and you have to hear it for yourself. So I answered. That was when he asked why his name had disappeared. Now in Rachel's laundry room with the towel cooling beside me, I listened to my husband breathe through his panic. Claire, he said lower this time, what did you do? I looked toward the small window above the washer. Outside, Rachel's boys had left a red plastic shovel in the grass after digging for worms. It lay there bright and useless under the gray sky. For years I had handed Daniel the shovel. Every time I apologized first. Every time I made his mother comfortable. Every time I let him explain my life back to me. Not anymore. I signed, I said. There was silence on the line. Then he said, that's not an answer. I picked up the warm towel again and folded it once more, though it did not need folding. It is, I said. You just don't understand what it cost. I used to wake before Daniel. Not because I had to. Because it was the only hour that felt like mine. The house sounded different at 5:30 a.m. The refrigerator hummed without interruption. The pipes clicked softly as the heat adjusted. Even the floorboards seemed less watchful. I would stand at the sink with my coffee and look out at the narrow strip of backyard we rarely used. The fence leaned slightly to the left where the ground had settled years ago. I had meant to fix it. I meant to fix a lot of things. Daniel said I overvalued small details. He liked outcomes. Clean lines, numbers that could be printed and stacked. I liked the things that happened before numbers. The way people leaned toward each other when they were tired. The quiet sign something was wrong before anyone said it out loud. The difference between a door being closed and a door being shut. I learned those differences early. Long before Daniel. My mother worked nights at a nursing home when I was growing up. By the time I was 10, I could read the room the way she read patients. You listen with your eyes first, she would say. People tell you things before they know they're telling you. That skill followed me into every space I entered. The church preschool. Family dinners. Waiting rooms. My own marriage. Especially my marriage. Daniel never raised his voice much. That was what made it confusing for other people. He was polite in public. Attentive enough to pass. He remembered birthdays, shook hands, firmly spoke in complete sentences. He did not need to shout to make a point. He had tone. He had timing. He had a way of placing a sentence at the end of a conversation that rewrote everything that came before it. You're overthinking. Let's not make this complicated. I already handled it. I know what's best here. He said those things gently. Like guidance. Like care. Like a man relieving someone else of a burden they were never meant to carry. I carried it anyway. Quietly. That was my specialty. The preschool paid $12 an hour. No benefits. No title that impressed anyone at Daniel's office parties. But I stayed because I was good at it. Not the crafts. Not the singing. The watching. The noticing. The small shifts. A child who stopped using his right hand. A girl who started flinching when someone raised their voice. A boy who refused to take off his jacket even in warm rooms. You learn to see those things and you can't unsee them. You also learn that most people don't want to. That kind of awareness doesn't translate well into a marriage built on balance sheets. Daniel liked to say I didn't understand value. He said it once while reviewing our retirement accounts at the dining table. This is what matters long term, he said, tapping the screen of his laptop. Consistency, growth, discipline. I had been sorting receipts into envelopes, groceries, utilities, medical. The categories made sense to me. They told a story. Where we spent. Where we cut back. Where we pretended everything was fine. What about now, I asked. He didn't look up. What about it? What matters now? He closed the laptop halfway. Claire, that's the difference between you and me. You think in moments, I think in outcomes. I didn't argue. I had learned that arguing with Daniel did not change the result. It only extended the conversation. So I folded the receipts and placed them in their envelopes. That was the life I lived quietly. Structured. Contained. Understood only by me. After the phone call on the 9th day, I did not return to that structure. Not fully. I stayed with Rachel for 3 more nights. Her townhouse smelled like laundry detergent and something sweet she baked on Sundays. Her boys left socks under the couch and half-finished homework on the kitchen table. It was messy in a way that did not feel like failure. It felt like life. Rachel did not ask too many questions. That was why I called her first. She had always been careful with other people's stories. "Do you want me to come with you?" she asked one morning while pouring cereal into 2 bowls. "For what?" "To talk to him." I shook my head. "No." She nodded. "Okay." She slid the bowl toward me. "You always were better at handling things directly." I almost corrected her. I had not handled things directly. I had handled them quietly. There is a difference. Directness confronts. Quietness absorbs until it changes shape. Mrs. Alvarez came by again that afternoon. She brought a manila folder and a pen that clicked loudly every time she pressed it. "I made a few calls," she said, setting the folder on the table. Rachel leaned against the counter. "What kind of calls?" "The kind you make when something doesn't feel right." She opened the folder. Inside were copies. Clean. Stamped. Organized. The way Daniel liked them. But these copies told a different story than the ones he had summarized for me. "This," she said, pointing to a paragraph halfway down the page, "is not routine." I leaned closer. The words were familiar. Legal language always is. Long sentences that circle around meaning instead of landing on it. "What does it do?" I asked. She looked at me carefully. "It shifts authority." "In what way?" "In a way that assumes you won't question it." Rachel let out a slow breath. So he thought. "He thought she would sign and move on," Mrs. Alvarez said. Her tone was not angry. It was factual. That made it easier to hear. And now I asked. Mrs. Alvarez closed the folder. "Now the record reflects something different." Rachel looked between us. "Different how?" I held the edge of the table. "Enough." That was the only word that felt accurate. Enough to change how things functioned. Not flashy. Not dramatic. But permanent. Mrs. Alvarez nodded slightly. "That's a good word for it." We sat there for a while without speaking. The clock on Rachel's wall ticked in even intervals. Outside, someone started a lawnmower. The sound filled the gaps we did not rush to close. Later that evening, Daniel called again. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Then a third. His messages grew shorter. "Claire, we need to fix this. Call me back." "This isn't funny." I deleted them one by one. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. He was not asking what happened. He was asking how to return things to the way they had been. I was not interested in that. On the 4th night, I went back to the house. I chose a time when I knew Daniel would still be at the office. His car was not in the driveway. The mailbox was slightly open. A flyer for a lawn service stuck out from the stack. I pushed it closed before unlocking the front door. The house smelled the same. Coffee. Furniture polish. Something faintly metallic from the vents. I stood in the entryway longer than I needed to. Listening. Nothing had changed. And everything had. I walked into the kitchen. The light above the table still flickered. He had not replaced it. The folder was gone. Of course it was. Daniel did not leave loose ends where they could be seen. I opened the pantry. The pencil marks on the inside of the door were still there. Rachel's boys had visited often enough to leave their own lines beside the older ones. Dates written in uneven handwriting. Small notations of growth. Proof that time had passed whether anyone acknowledged it or not. I ran my finger over the highest mark. It felt slightly raised. I remembered measuring them, holding the pencil steady, saying stand up straight. They would laugh, wiggle, try to cheat an extra inch. Those moments mattered to me. They always had. I closed the pantry door. Then I went to the bedroom. Daniel's side of the closet was organized by color. Shirts in a row. Pants pressed. Shoes aligned. My side was simpler. Fewer choices. Fewer expectations. I pulled out a small suitcase from the top shelf. The zipper stuck halfway. I had meant to replace it. I packed slowly. Not everything. Just what I needed. Clothes. Toiletries. The blue accordion file. A framed photo of my mother. I left the rest. Not as a gesture. As a decision. Some things no longer belonged to me. Some things never had. When I came back into the kitchen, I sat at the table. The same chair. The same angle. The same view of the backyard fence. I placed my hands flat on the surface. The wood was smooth where years of use had worn it down. I thought about the signatures. The way my name had looked on the page. Calm. Controlled. Present. I thought about Daniel's voice. You don't own anything. I did not feel the need to prove him wrong. Not in the way he would understand. Ownership is not always about paper. Sometimes it is about knowing exactly what you are agreeing to. And what you are not. The garage door opened. I heard it from the kitchen. The low mechanical rumble. Then the car engine cutting off. Footsteps. Keys in the bowl by the door. Daniel entered without calling my name. He saw the suitcase first. Then me. He stopped. For a moment he did not speak. That was new. Claire, he said finally. I looked at him. He looked tired. Not broken. Not changed. Just tired. We need to talk. I nodded once. We do. He stepped closer to the table. His eyes moved over the room. Taking inventory. Assessing. You can't just do this, he said. Do what? Change things without discussing it. I almost smiled. We discussed it, I said. You just didn't think I was part of the discussion. His mouth tightened. That's not fair. I did not answer. He placed both hands on the back of the chair across from me. Whatever this is, we can fix it. There was that word again. Fix. As if I were a situation. A problem. A miscalculation. I looked at his hands. Clean. Steady. Accustomed to control. For years I said I thought fixing things meant making them easier for you. He blinked once. I don't know what that means. I do. He pulled the chair out and sat down. Across from me. The same distance as 9 days ago. The same table. Different conversation. This isn't how marriage works, he said. I held his gaze. Maybe not the way ours did. He leaned forward slightly. So what now? The question hung between us. Not loud. Not urgent. Just present. I took a breath. Slow. Even? The kind I used when a child was about to cry and didn't know why yet. Now, I said, we find out what's actually left when things aren't the way you prefer. He looked at me like he was seeing something unfamiliar. Not new. Just no longer arranged for his comfort. Outside, the fence leaned slightly to the left. Inside, nothing moved. Not yet. The first thing Daniel noticed missing was not the document. It was the routine. On the 10th morning, he opened the cabinet above the sink and stood there longer than usual. I watched from the end of the hallway. He did not turn around. Where's the extra coffee filters, he called. In the pantry, I said. They're not here. They're on the second shelf. A pause. Then the sound of something being moved. A box scraping wood. He closed the cabinet harder than necessary. They used to be here. They used to be, I said. He didn't respond. That was the beginning. Not the call. Not the paperwork. The shift. Small things first. They always are. I stayed in the house that morning. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to see what would happen if I did not step in. Daniel moved through the kitchen with a kind of distracted precision. He poured coffee, checked his phone, opened the fridge, closed it again without taking anything out. He looked around as if the room had changed shape overnight. It hadn't. He just didn't know where things were without me placing them in his path. Where's the lunch container, he asked. Dishwasher. It's not clean. It was last night. He opened the dishwasher. Paused. then closed it. I didn't run it, he said. I know. He looked at me then. Really looked. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was confusion. That unsettled him more. You could have said something. I assumed you knew. He frowned. That's not helpful. I didn't answer. He turned back to the counter. I have a meeting in 40 minutes. I nodded once. He picked up his keys, set them down again, then picked them up a second time. I'll just grab something on the way, he said. I watched him leave. The door closed softly behind him. No slammed exit. No final word. Just absence. The house settled into itself. I walked into the kitchen and stood where he had been standing. The coffee was still warm. The cabinet door slightly ajar. A small ordinary mess. For years I had erased those small disruptions before they became visible. Before they became his problem. Now they remained. Not as punishment. As reality. I poured the rest of the coffee into my mug and carried it to the back door. The fence leaned the same way it always had. Left. Unfixed. I had noticed it for years. Daniel had not. Later that afternoon I went to the bank. Not the one Daniel used for his business accounts. The smaller branch near the grocery store where the tellers knew my name because I came in with deposits from the preschool. It smelled like carpet cleaner and paper. A woman named Denise stood behind the counter. She had helped me once when a check had been flagged incorrectly. She remembered. Claire, she said, it's been a while. It has. What can I do for you? I placed a folder on the counter. I need to understand something. She opened it carefully. Not rushed. Not dismissive. She read, line by line. Then she looked up at me. Who explained this to you? No one, I said. She nodded slowly. That makes sense. I waited. What does it mean, I asked. She glanced around, then lowered her voice slightly. It means the control you thought you didn't have wasn't entirely gone. I held her gaze. And now it's clearer. Clear how? In a way that's going to make some conversations uncomfortable. I almost smiled. They already are. She closed the folder and slid it back to me. You didn't do anything wrong? I didn't think I did. I'm not saying that for you, she said. I'm saying it because someone might try to make you think you did. I nodded. Thank you. I left the bank and sat in my car for a few minutes before starting the engine. The steering wheel felt warm under my hands. The parking lot was half full. A man loaded groceries into the trunk of a sedan. A child sat in the back seat, kicking the door with small rhythmic thuds. Life moving. Unaware. I had spent years believing my life moved the same way. It didn't. It had been arranged. Adjusted. Maintained. By me. Without recognition. That recognition wasn't what I wanted. Clarity was. When I got home, Daniel was already there. Earlier than usual. His jacket was draped over the back of a chair. His laptop open on the table. The screen filled with numbers. He looked up when I walked in. Where were you? Out. That's not an answer. It's enough of one. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. There it was again. Assessment. Calculation. Trying to place me back into a version he understood. This isn't sustainable, he said. What isn't? This. He gestured vaguely between us. The way you're acting. Different. Yes. I set my keys on the counter. Or just noticeable. His jaw tightened. You're making things harder than they need to be. For who? For both of us. I shook my head once. For you. He stood up. Slow. Controlled. Claire. I waited. We need to fix the paperwork situation. There's nothing to fix. There is if my name is no longer where it's supposed to be. Supposed to be, I repeated. You know what I mean. I know what you expected. His voice sharpened. This isn't about expectations, it's about how things are done. How things were done, I said. Silence. He stepped closer. Not aggressive, but closer. That house is in my name. I held his gaze. Not the way you think. Something flickered in his expression. Not fear. Not yet. Recognition. Small. Unwelcome. He exhaled through his nose. You're overcomplicating this. I'm understanding it. That's not your area. There it was. Clear. Unfiltered. A boundary he had drawn long ago. I let the word sit. Then I said it is now. He looked away first. That mattered more than he realized. He picked up his phone. Scrolled. Stopped. His thumb hovered over the screen. People are going to notice, he said. Notice what? If something's off. I almost laughed. Something has been off for a long time. He didn't respond. Instead, he walked to the sink. Turned on the water. Then turned it off again without using it. A small incomplete action. I recognized it. He didn't. Claire, he said, still facing away from me, we've built a life here. I looked around the kitchen. The flickering light. The worn table. The cabinet where the filters used to be. We did, I said. Then why are you acting like you want to tear it down? I considered the question. I'm not tearing it down, I said. I'm just not holding it up by myself anymore. He turned then. Fully. For the first time since I had come back. What does that mean? It means you're going to see what this house looks like without me managing it for you. That's ridiculous. Is it? He ran a hand through his hair. Frustration now. Clear. Visible. This isn't about coffee filters and lunch containers. I know. Then stop pretending it is. I'm not pretending, I said. I'm showing you. Showing me what? I stepped closer. Not confrontational. Just enough that he had to stay where he was. What it feels like when something you depend on disappears, I said. His eyes narrowed slightly. This isn't the same thing. No, I said, it isn't. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Then said, you're being passive-aggressive. I shook my head. No. What then? Accurate. That word landed differently. He didn't have an immediate response. Outside, a car drove past slowly. The sound of tires on pavement filled the space between us. He looked at me again. Longer this time? Trying to reconcile something. You're not the same, he said. I nodded. I know. He swallowed once. Since when? I thought about the dinner table. The car ride. The kitchen. The pen in my hand. Since I stopped needing you to explain my life to me, I said. He looked down. Then back up. Something in his posture shifted. Not enough to change the dynamic, but enough to mark it. I have a meeting, he said finally. I stepped back. Of course you do. He grabbed his jacket. His keys. Paused at the door. For a second I thought he might say something else. He didn't. The door closed behind him. Again softly. I stood in the kitchen alone. The light flickered once above me. Then steadied. For the first time in years, I did not reach for the step stool to fix it. I left it as it was. He came home early the next day. Earlier than his schedule allowed. Earlier than his habits preferred. The garage door opened at 3:12 in the afternoon. I remember the time because I was sitting at the kitchen table with a pen in my hand writing a list I did not need. Groceries we already had. Appointments that were already kept. Names of people who would not be calling. The sound of the door interrupted the rhythm of the pen. I stopped mid-word. List. Life. Both looked the same from a distance. Daniel stepped into the kitchen without removing his jacket. He usually hung it on the chair, smoothing the sleeves as if fabric could hold order. This time he left it on. Claire. His voice was even. Too even. I set the pen down. I'm here. He placed a folder on the table. Not the same one. This one was darker. He did not sit. We need to talk now. I nodded. We do. He pulled out a chair and sat across from me. The same seat. The same angle. But his posture had changed. Less relaxed. More deliberate. I went to the records office this morning, he said. I know. You know. Not a question. A statement. I waited. They told me the filing reflects a different structure than what I submitted. I folded my hands in front of me. They're correct. His eyes sharpened. How? That's the part you didn't explain to me. I didn't need to. There it was again. The assumption. I looked at him. You needed me to sign. That's not the same thing. It is when you expect me not to understand. He leaned forward slightly. I expected you to trust me. I held his gaze. I did. The words landed between us. Not defensive. Not emotional. Just true. And you still chose to. I chose to read. He stopped. For a moment the room held its breath. You said you didn't read it. I said I didn't read it at the table. Silence. Then slowly his expression shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Calculation. Reconstruction. You went back, he said. Yes. When? After you left? With who? Does it matter? It matters if someone else is involved in our business. Our business, I repeated. He exhaled. Frustration now. Clear. Claire, this isn't something you handle by yourself. I didn't. Then who? I handled my part. He pushed the folder toward me. Look at this. I didn't move. I already know what it says. Then read it again. I don't need to. You do if you think this is acceptable. I almost smiled. Acceptable to who? To me. There it was. The line. Clear. Unapologetic. I let it sit. Then I said, that's the difference. What difference? You think acceptable means approved by you. He leaned back. His chair creaked softly against the floor. This is getting us nowhere. It's getting us somewhere, I said. You just don't like where it's going. He rubbed his forehead. A gesture I had seen before. Usually before he explained something I was supposed to agree with. Let me make this simple, he said. I understand it clearly. You don't? I do. You don't understand the implications. I tilted my head slightly. Explain them to me. He hesitated. That was new. Daniel did not hesitate when he felt in control. This affects how the property is represented, he said. I know. It changes how decisions are made. I know. It limits. He stopped. The word hung there. Unfinished. I waited. What I asked. It limits flexibility. For who? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We both knew. For you, I said. He looked away. Only for a second. But it was enough. You're making this adversarial, he said. I'm making it accurate. That's not how marriage works. Then maybe we haven't been in the same marriage. He stood up. Walked to the sink. Turned the water on. Let it run. Then turned it off again. Another incomplete action. Another small crack. You could have talked to me, he said, still facing away. I tried. When? Every time you explained my life back to me? He turned. That's not fair. It's consistent. His jaw tightened. This is not about control. It is for me. For you. Yes. He laughed once. Short. Sharp. You don't even like dealing with this kind of thing. You decided that for me. Because it's true. I decided to believe you. That landed harder. He didn't respond right away. He walked back to the table. Placed both hands on the surface. Leaning in. Claire, he said, quieter now, we need to undo this. There's nothing to undo. There is if we correct the filing. You can't correct something that reflects the truth. And what truth is that? I looked at him. Not with anger. Not with accusation. With clarity. That I'm not invisible in my own life. He stared at me. For a long moment neither of us spoke. The refrigerator motor clicked on behind him. A low, steady hum. Filling the silence. This isn't about visibility, he said finally. It is for me. You're turning this into something it's not. I'm turning it into something it always was. He shook his head. You're overreacting. I almost laughed. I didn't react, I said. I responded. To what? To years of being managed. His eyes narrowed. That's not how I see it. I know. That doesn't make your version right. It makes it mine. He exhaled. Long. Controlled. People are going to ask questions, he said. Let them. What do I tell them? I thought about that. Then I said the truth. He smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. You think this ends well? I held his gaze. I think it ends honestly. That's not the same thing. It is for me. He picked up the folder. Closed it. Pressed the edges together until they aligned. A habit. A need for order. This isn't over, he said. No, I said, it isn't. He nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. Then he grabbed his jacket. His keys. Paused at the door. Again. The same hesitation. But this time he spoke. If you walk this path, he said, there's no easy way back. I didn't move. I'm not looking for an easy way, I said. He watched me for a second longer. Then he left. The door closed. Not softly this time. Not slammed. But firm. Deliberate. I stood in the kitchen alone. The list on the table still unfinished. The pen resting across it. I picked it up. Looked at the word I had stopped on. Life. I drew a line through it. Not to erase it. To mark that it had changed. Later that evening I sat on the back porch. The fence leaned the same way. Left. Unfixed. I had lived with that lean for years. Adjusted around it. Worked with it. Ignored it when it was easier. Now I saw it clearly. Not as a flaw. As a sign. Something had shifted beneath the surface a long time ago. I just hadn't named it. Inside the house was quiet. No television. No phone calls. No explanations. Just space. I rested my hands on my knees, breathing evenly. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for Daniel to come home so I could adjust to him. I was waiting to see who I was without adjusting at all. And that question felt more important than anything written in that folder. The first week without adjusting to Daniel felt less like freedom than withdrawal. I kept reaching for habits that no longer had a place to land. At 6:10, I almost started his coffee. At 6:25, I looked toward the hallway for the sound of his shoes. At 7 o'clock, I nearly packed a lunch he would have forgotten to take. Then I stopped myself. Not dramatically. No sweeping gesture. Just a pause. A small correction of the hand. That was how a life changed at first. Not with thunder. With a woman standing beside a drawer realizing she did not have to pull it open. Daniel stayed mostly away from the house. He said he needed space. I understood what that meant. He needed a room where my new version of the truth was not sitting across from him at the kitchen table. So he slept at a hotel near his office for 3 nights. Then at his mother's house. Patricia called me the second afternoon. Her voice came through the phone, polished and careful. Claire, I'm trying to understand what's happening. I stood in Rachel's driveway watching her youngest son drag a stick along the curb. That makes 2 of us, I said. She did not laugh. Patricia rarely laughed unless the moment had already been approved by someone else. Daniel says you've made some unusual decisions. Of course he does. He's very concerned. I'm sure he is. There was a pause. Then her voice lowered. This is not like you. That sentence would have worked on the old me. The old me would have felt guilty for surprising people who had never bothered to know her. Now I looked at the maple tree beside the driveway. Its leaves had started turning at the edges. Not fully. Just enough to prove the season had already decided. Maybe it is like me, I said, you just haven't seen it before. She went quiet. Then she said marriage requires humility. Yes, I said, from both people. A longer pause. I hope you're not being influenced. There it was. The safer version of accusation. Not that I was wrong. That I could not have become clear by myself. I'm being informed, I said. That sounds defensive. It sounds accurate. Her breath changed. Small. I could picture her sitting in her pale living room with the framed family portraits Daniel at every age arranged like evidence of good parenting. Claire, she said, you have always been a gentle woman. I still am. Gentle women do not tear families apart. I watched Rachel's son drop the stick and run toward the porch. His shoelaces were untied. Sometimes I said they stop holding them together alone. I ended the call before she could respond. My hand shook after. Only a little. Enough to remind me I had not become stone. That was important. I did not want to become hard. I wanted to become honest. There is a difference. At the preschool, the children noticed before the adults did. Children always do. A little girl named Emma tilted her head during snack time and said, "Miss Claire, your eyes are quiet today." I smiled at her. "They are." She nodded solemnly. "Not sad, just quiet." I handed her a napkin. "That sounds about right." She accepted it like we had completed a serious exchange. Later, during pickup, her grandmother pulled me aside. She was a retired school secretary who wore bright scarves and carried peppermint candies in her coat pocket. "You look tired, honey," she said. "I'm all right." "That's not what I said." I looked at her. She looked back without pressing. Some people ask questions to collect information. Others leave a door open. I stepped through only a little. "Things are changing at home." She nodded once. "Are they changing toward you or away from you?" The question stayed with me for the rest of the day. Toward me. Away from me. I had spent so many years moving toward Daniel that I had mistaken motion for devotion. After work, I drove to the house. Daniel's car was in the driveway. For a moment, I sat with both hands on the steering wheel. The garage light flickered above his bumper. A moth bumped against it again and again, unable to understand the barrier between itself and brightness. I almost turned the car off. Then Daniel opened the front door. He did not wave. He stood there as if I had arrived for an appointment. I got out. The air smelled like cut grass and distant rain. Inside the house had begun telling on him. Not loudly. Daniel was too controlled for visible chaos. But I saw what he had missed. 2 envelopes unopened on the console table. A glass ring on the sideboard. Shoes near the hallway instead of the closet. A faint smell from the trash under the sink. Small things. Nothing unforgivable. Everything revealing. He followed my gaze. "I've been busy." I didn't say anything. "You didn't have to." We stood in the entryway like guests in a home neither of us owned emotionally anymore. He had loosened his tie. His shirt sleeves were unevenly rolled. One cuff higher than the other. I noticed. I wondered if he noticed that I noticed. "We need to decide how to handle dinner on Sunday," he said. "What dinner?" "My mother's." I looked at him. "Why would I go?" His face tightened. "Because not going makes a statement. Going would make one too." He rubbed his thumb across his wedding ring. It was back on his finger now. Too late to mean what it used to. People will ask. Then answer. "What do you want me to say?" "That I'm not available." "That sounds cold." "It's true." He walked into the kitchen. I followed, leaving space between us. The table was clear except for his laptop and a ceramic bowl Patricia had given us one Christmas. I had never liked it, but I kept it because not liking a gift from Patricia always became an event. Daniel put both hands on the back of a chair. "You're enjoying this?" he said. I stopped. There it was. The story he needed. If I was enjoying it, then I was cruel. If I was cruel, then he could remain wronged instead of responsible. "No," I said, "I'm not." He turned. "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't expect you to believe anything anymore." That landed. His expression changed. "Not much." "Enough." He pulled the chair out and sat. "I don't know how we got here." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I sat across from him. "You do." He stared down at the table. The wood between us held scratches from years of ordinary life. A dropped fork. A dragged vase. A Thanksgiving centerpiece Patricia had insisted was too large but brought anyway. "You think I wanted you small?" he said. I did not answer quickly. A fast answer would have been easier. Less honest? "I think you wanted me manageable," I said. He looked up. "That's not the same." It felt the same from where I was standing. His eyes moved over my face, searching for the crack where he could enter with an explanation. He did not find it. "I was under pressure," he said. "I know. With work, with money, with Mom getting older. I know." "You have no idea what that feels like." I almost smiled. Not kindly. Not cruelly. Just sadly. "Daniel, I said I have been managing pressure you never named because it benefited you when I carried it quietly." He looked away. Outside rain began ticking against the window. Soft at first. Then steadier. He listened to it like he needed something else in the room to speak. "I didn't mean to make you feel worthless," he said. It was the closest he had come to an apology. but it still placed the damage inside my feelings. Not his actions. I folded my hands. You didn't make me feel worthless, I said. His eyes returned to mine. You taught me that my worth was inconvenient to you. He flinched. Just once. A small movement near the mouth. For years I would have softened the sentence after seeing that. I would have added, I know you didn't mean it. I would have reached for his hand. I would have made his discomfort easier than my truth. This time I stayed still. The rain grew heavier. He stood abruptly and walked to the sink. Again. Always the sink. Always water when words became too solid. He turned the faucet on. Then off. No glass. No purpose. Just motion. I don't know what you want from me, he said. That question sounded tired. But underneath it was fear. Not fear of losing me. Not yet. Fear of losing the version of himself my silence had protected. I want you to stop asking what I want, I said, as if you haven't heard me. He turned around. What have I not heard? That I was here. He said nothing. That I was part of this life. Still nothing. That I did not become valuable because a document changed. His face tightened. I never said that. You didn't have to. For a moment he looked older. Not aged. Stripped of certainty. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it. Patricia. I saw the name. So did he. He did not answer. That was new. The rain softened. The kitchen light flickered once above us, then again. Daniel looked up at it. I meant to fix that. I know. He laughed under his breath. No humor in it. Of course you do. We sat with the sentence between us. I realized then that some part of him was seeing the room for the first time. Not the kitchen. The labor inside it. The invisible structure. The woman who had maintained both. But recognition is not the same as repair. And I was no longer offering free repairs. I stood. I'm taking the accordion file, I said. He nodded slowly. Okay. I'm also taking the photo of my mother. Okay. And I'm not going to your mother's dinner. His jaw tightened, but he nodded again. Okay. 3 okays. Small. Uneven. But real enough for that moment. I walked to the bedroom and gathered what I came for. When I returned, Daniel was still at the table. He had not moved. The laptop screen had gone dark. In the reflection I saw both of us. Not clearly. Just shapes. A man sitting. A woman standing. A marriage between them. I placed my suitcase by the door. Daniel looked up. Where are you staying tonight? With Rachel. For how long? I don't know. He swallowed. Are you leaving me? The question should have felt dramatic. It didn't. It felt late. I touched the handle of the suitcase. I'm leaving the version of us that required me to disappear. He looked down. For once he did not correct my wording. I opened the door. The rain had turned the porch steps dark. Before I stepped outside, I looked back. Daniel was still at the table. Under the flickering light. In the house he had thought proved his authority. And for the first time he looked like a man sitting inside the consequences of being believed too long. I stepped into the rain. I did not run. He didn't call for 2 days. That was new. Daniel had always believed in steady contact. Check-ins. Updates. A rhythm that kept things within reach. Silence for him had always meant something was wrong. Now he was choosing it. Or trying to. On the 3rd evening he knocked on Rachel's door. Not rang. Knocked. 3 times. Even spacing. Measured. Rachel looked at me from the kitchen. You want me to get that? No. I dried my hands on a towel. Walked to the door. Opened it. Daniel stood on the porch without his jacket. The air had turned cooler. He looked like he had left in a hurry. Hi, he said. Hi. Neither of us moved. Rachel's boys were in the living room. A cartoon voice laughed too loudly. Life continued around us. I didn't call, he said. I noticed. I thought maybe you needed space. I did. He nodded. And now? I considered the question. I still do. He took that in. Did not argue. That's fair, he said. It was the first time he had used that word without correction. Fair. He shifted his weight slightly. I'm not here to argue. Okay. I'm here to talk. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. The porch light cast a soft yellow circle around us. You can talk, I said. He exhaled once. I've been trying to understand what changed. I waited. I keep going back to the paperwork, he said, but I don't think that's where it started. It isn't. He nodded. I thought if I fixed that part, everything else would settle. That's how you've always approached things. Yes. A small admission. Clear. Unprotected. And it worked, I said. Until it didn't. He looked at me. I didn't see it slipping. I know. I thought we were stable. We were stable, I said, just not equal. He closed his eyes briefly. Opened them again. I didn't think of it that way. I know. We stood there listening to the distant sound of a car passing. Someone's dog barked once, then stopped. Daniel rubbed his hands together. A gesture I hadn't seen before. Not in him. I went back through everything he said. Accounts, documents, conversations. I didn't interrupt. I kept looking for the moment I crossed a line. You crossed it slowly. He nodded. That's what I'm starting to see. Silence. Then he said I thought I was protecting us. From what? Instability. And what did you call what I was doing? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We both knew. Invisible. Insignificant. Support. Not work. I didn't know how much you were carrying, he said. You didn't ask. I thought I knew. That's different. He looked down at the porch boards. They were slightly warped from years of weather. I've been trying to run the house the way you did, he said. I almost smiled. How's that going? He let out a quiet breath. Not well. What's not working? He glanced up at me. Everything that used to work without me noticing. I nodded. That makes sense. I keep missing things. You didn't used to have to see them. I should have. Yes. He swallowed. Claire, I didn't realize how much of my life was structured by you. I let the sentence sit. Not softened. Not expanded. Just heard. And when that structure changed, he continued, I thought something was broken. It was. What? The assumption. He looked at me carefully. That I could function the same without you. That you were functioning alone. He exhaled slowly. That's hard to hear. It was harder to live. He accepted that. Not gracefully. But honestly, a shift. Small. But real. I'm not here to ask you to come back tonight, he said. I raised my eyes slightly. That was new. I'm here to ask, what comes next? The question landed differently this time. Not as a demand. Not as a shortcut. As uncertainty. I leaned against the porch railing. It was cool under my hand. What comes next, I said, depends on what you think happened. He looked at me. I think I built a life that worked for me, he said slowly. And I told myself it worked for both of us. I nodded. And now I'm seeing that it worked because you were making it work. Yes. And I didn't acknowledge that. No. And when you stopped, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. You felt it, I said. He nodded. Yes. We stood there. No raised voices. No accusations. Just alignment. Late. But present. I'm sorry, he said. The words were quiet. Not dramatic. Not rehearsed. I know that doesn't fix anything, he added. It doesn't. I'm not saying it to fix anything. Then why are you saying it? He took a moment. Because it's true. I watched him, looking for the familiar signs. The shift into justification. The pivot into explanation. They didn't come. That mattered. Okay, I said. He nodded. Not relieved. Just acknowledged. I also know he said that I can't ask you to trust me the same way. You can't. And I can't expect things to go back. No. And I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. Good. He let out a breath. Longer this time. I don't know how to rebuild this, he said. That's honest. I'm trying. I can see that. He looked at me again. Searching. Not for control. For direction. I don't want to lose you, he said. There it was. The first time the fear had shifted. Not about the house. Not about the document. About me. I didn't move. I'm not something you keep, I said. I know. You said that once. His eyes closed briefly. I remember. Good. Silence settled again. But it felt different now. Less defensive. More open. I'm not coming back the way things were, I said. I understand. If anything changes, it will be slower. I understand. And it won't be built on you explaining things to me. I understand. And it won't be built on me making things easier for you without being seen. He nodded. I understand. We stood there repeating the same phrase. But this time it wasn't dismissal. It was effort. Uncertain. Incomplete. But effort. I don't know if this works, I said. I don't either. But I'm not closing the door completely. He let out a small breath. Not relief. Recognition. That's more than I expected, he said. That's all I have. It's enough. We looked at each other. Not as before. Not as roles. As people. Separate. Real. I'll go, he said. Okay. He turned. Walked down the steps. Then paused. Not to correct. Not to argue. Just to say something that hadn't been said before. Thank you for not disappearing, he said. I held his gaze. I didn't disappear, I said. I know. He nodded once. Then he left. I stood on the porch a moment longer. The night air cool against my skin. Inside, Rachel's boys laughed at something on the television. Life continued. Messy. Unstructured. Real. I opened the door and stepped back in. Rachel looked up from the couch. Well, I hung my coat on the back of a chair. We talked, I said. She studied my face. And I sat down. Let the quiet settle. Then I said, for the first time. He listened. The following Sunday, I did not go to Patricia's house. For the first time in years, I chose absence over performance. I stayed at Rachel's. We made pancakes that stuck to the pan because the heat was too high. Her youngest insisted on pouring the syrup himself and missed the plate completely. We laughed, cleaned it up, and kept eating. Nothing was perfect. Everything felt honest. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Daniel. I looked at the screen for a moment before answering. Hi. Hi. His voice sounded quieter than usual. Not weak, just measured. How's dinner, I asked. It hasn't started yet. I pictured Patricia setting the table, the china placed just so, the chairs aligned, the unspoken expectations waiting in every corner. You're not coming, he said. I'm not. A pause. They asked about you. I assumed they would. I told them you were taking time. That's accurate. He exhaled softly. My mother didn't like that. I didn't expect her to. Another pause. I didn't defend her, he said. I know. How? You called me before dinner. He let out a small breath. You're right. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable. Just real. I wanted you there, he said. I know. But not the way it used to be. No. I don't want that either. That mattered. Not because it fixed anything. Because it acknowledged something. I'm not ready, I said. I understand. He didn't push. He didn't explain. He didn't try to make the moment smaller. He stayed where it was. I'll call you later, he said. Okay. We ended the call. No final line. No emotional punctuation. Just completion. That afternoon I drove back to the house. Not to move back in. To sit in it. To see what it felt like when it wasn't defined by his expectations or my adjustments. The key still turned the same way in the lock. The hallway still held the faint echo of footsteps. The kitchen light still flickered. I stood in the center of the room and waited for the old version of myself to return. She didn't. Instead, I noticed different things. The way the table held space rather than pressure. The way the quiet didn't demand to be filled. The way the house didn't feel like something I needed to maintain to deserve being inside it. I walked to the back door. The fence still leaned. Left. Unfixed. I smiled slightly. Some things didn't need to be corrected to be understood. A few minutes later, the front door opened. Daniel stepped in. He stopped when he saw me. "I didn't know you'd be here." "I wasn't sure I would be." He nodded. That answer made sense to him now. "Dinner ended early," he said. "How was it?" He loosened his tie. "Different." "In what way?" They noticed I wasn't filling in the gaps. I leaned against the counter. "That must have been uncomfortable." It was. And I didn't fix it. I held his gaze. "That's new." "Yes." He walked into the kitchen slowly. Not taking over the space, just entering it. "My mother asked why you weren't there," he said. "And what did you say?" "I said you weren't available for something that didn't feel honest." I nodded once. "That sounds like you." He almost smiled. She didn't agree. I didn't expect her to. He set his keys down. Carefully. Not the usual drop. "Mark made a joke about you leaving," he said. And I didn't laugh. Silence. Then I said, "That matters." "It does." We stood there. The same kitchen. The same table. Different people. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "What?" "The way I talked about you." I waited. "At dinner, at work, even at home." He looked down briefly. "I reduced you to what I could measure." I felt that sentence. Not as pain. As recognition. "Yes," I said. I didn't see the rest. Number. And when you stopped filling that role, I became visible. He nodded. "That's what it feels like." We sat at the table. Not across from each other this time. At an angle. Less opposition. More space. "I don't expect things to go back," he said. "I know. But I want to understand how to move forward." "That's different." "I'm trying to make it different." I looked at him. Not for flaws. For effort. It was there. Uneven. Incomplete. But real. "We don't move forward by fixing one thing," I said. "Then how?" "By not pretending it was one thing." He nodded slowly. "That makes sense." "It takes time." "I have time." That answer would have sounded like control before. Now it sounded like patience. A quieter form of strength. "I'm not moving back in tonight," I said. "I didn't expect you to." "I might come by sometimes." "You're welcome to." "I'm not asking permission." "I know." He smiled slightly. A small human expression? Not a calculated one. "I'm learning," he said. "I can see that." We sat in silence for a while. Not empty. Not tense. Just present. The refrigerator hummed. The light flickered once, then steadied. Daniel looked up at it. "I'm going to fix that," he said. I shook my head gently. "Not because it's broken," I added, "because you see it." He nodded. "That's the difference." He stood and reached for the step stool. For years I had done that without thinking. Now I watched him do it. Not with resentment. With clarity. He climbed up. Adjusted the bulb. Tightened it carefully. The light steadied. No flicker. He stepped down. Looked at it. Then at me. "That should have been done a long time ago," he said. "Yes," I said, "it should have." We didn't pretend that fixing the light fixed anything else. We didn't turn it into a symbol bigger than it was. It was just a light. Finally seen. Finally addressed. Later, as I stood by the door ready to leave, Daniel spoke. "Claire." I turned. "I don't know what we become from here," he said. "Neither do I. But I don't want to build it the way we did before." "Good." "I want it to be visible." I held his gaze. "So do I." I stepped outside. The evening air felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Just clear. For years I had thought the goal was to be understood. Now I realized something simpler. I didn't need to be reduced to fit into someone else's version of stability. I didn't need to disappear to keep something intact. I didn't need to prove my worth through exhaustion. I just needed to remain present. Fully. Without shrinking. As I walked down the steps, I heard the door close behind me. Not as an ending, as a boundary. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like dignity. If you've ever been told your value depends on what someone else can measure, pause for a moment. Look at what you hold together quietly. Look at what changes when you stop. And ask yourself one question. Are you being seen or just being used to keep things working? You don't need a dramatic moment to answer that. Sometimes clarity is enough. Sometimes choosing yourself is enough. And sometimes that's where everything begins again.